today. Rob Browne in Memphis, Brendan Martin, Marion County, Ocala, Florida, horse capital, limestone capital of the world.
Horse capital, Rob. Doesn't say limestone capital when you pull into town. It says horse capital of the world.
Ocala, the most southern town in Florida. I love it. Brendan Martin.
Southern town in Florida? What are you talking about?
Oh, yeah, well,
like southern culture, you mean?
Yeah. Changes in the winter a little bit. Hey, got a great show today, man. Got the round table, Frank Duffy, Doug Dean. Special guest, Dave Bartoo. Guys and gals, you're going to love this guy. I've been listening to him on my friend Chuck Oliver's show for a long time, and I was like, I got to get him on the show. The numbers behind the college football passion that we have. How do you find these coaches? Who has the database? Who makes the matchups? It's Dave Bartoo.
How's the sausage made?
That's right. Hey, take a picture with your QR code. We're on
Take
X,
a picture
Twitter,
with your phone of the
and
QR code.
take a picture with your phone of the QR code. We're on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook,
Rob's
7
on
channels.
this morning, actually.
Yeah, simultaneously. That did Jamaican Me Crazy and Pecan Coffee from Shadrack in Jonesboro, Arkansas. I know. I want him as a sponsor. Hint,
Apparently.
hint. Hey, let's get started, guys, and bring everybody in here. The best 60 minutes in college football, SEC. Dave Bartoo, let's get going here with you now, and Doug Dean and Frank Duffy. Dave, thank you for getting up. Now, Doug Dean, you know, and I think hopefully Doug will be back in with us. But Dave, you're a big hunting guide. In addition to doing all these numbers for college football, I love it. The elk, and I think that people, and I said, you know, connect the dots. How do you find these coaches, these assistant coaches, head coaches? How do you find everybody to put a staff together? And somebody's got to have a database. And I hear you waxing eloquent every Tuesday with Chuck Oliver. And Doug, just so you'll know, Dave is a big-time hunting guide out in the Pacific Northwest. He's an Oregon Duck. And one time he was late coming on Chuck's show. He was out on an elk hunt deep in the wilderness. Man, you're already batting 1,000, Dave. Welcome to the Friday Roundtable, man. Glad to have you on here.
No, I think my best elk hunting story, because usually I'm bow hunting all of September. I got to admit, I don't watch a whole lot of college football. Now I watch the scoreboard. Don't get me wrong. You know, even at 8,000 feet, I can hit refresh and get a scoreboard. But there was one morning, it was just last year, I get an SEC AD call me. He's like, "Hey, Dave." I'm like, "Dude, you know I'm on the West Coast. You know how early it is?"
So early.
Like, yeah. Like, he's like, "You hunting?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "I got some questions for you."
A man after my own heart.
Yeah. Oh man. So literally I'm like on this, I'm at like 7,400 feet, and I'm walking this ridge line trying to get to my spot because I can hear elk below me. They're 2 draws over. And I'm trying to get to my spot, and I got a SEC AD going, "Hey, got some questions for you. You got a minute?"
Hey, those D-backs don't coach themselves now. I'm sorry about your elk hunt, but we need a D-back coach.
No. It's great.
Dave, Doug Dean of Birmingham. We could hijack this whole show and talk bow hunting, but my favorite visual, at least, was overlooking axis buck hunting in Hawaii, the island of Molokai, overlooking the South Pacific. That's some elevation there too.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, we could totally hijack this thing with just elk stories last year. So I appreciate that.
Dave, I want to get started. You've got relationships with, and we're going to focus really on the SEC, but you're an Oregon Duck, and you talk about some passionate fans, Autzen Stadium. I've been watching them since the days of Rich Brooks, and then Mike Bellotti, I thought, was a great coach those 14 years. And then you go on to Chip Kelly, Halford, and that Mario.
All the way back to Coach Fry.
It's been a while. So talk about, you get these calls, hey, we're trying to put a staff together. And talk about your database that you've built and what you do for colleges all over the country.
Yeah, well, it started with colleges about 10 years ago. We started developing the database, and we went back to 2010. And my Pulsa, Adam, we decided part of college football because we just love college football. That was our favorite, both of our favorite sports. But we wanted to be in the analytical side that was off the field. We felt everybody was pursuing fool's gold with on-field analytics because they were trying to mimic baseball, which is impossible. And so we focused on an area that we felt was extremely valuable, not recruiting level valuable, but the second most valuable aspect of college football, and that was coaching. And so we were able to create enough data and enough formulas that we have been able to track every single FBS coach since 2010, and we grade them annually on their performance, and then those go into their career grades. So when a head coach says, hey, I want to put together a staff, we use our database to find guys. Specifically, though, we have found, I always dreamed it was that guy in the middle of nowhere that coach didn't know about, right? They don't like guys they don't know about. A whole lot. Every once in a while, I'll get a head coach that says, look, I'm stumped. Give me the best guys you got because I got nobody else on my list. It happens once in a while, especially when it comes around budget time, right? You get down to that last guy. I have X amount of money. I can't go hire the $1 million guy I want. So give me an up and comer that I can afford. But normally we use our information.
I got no idea who you're talking about.
I
got no idea who you talking about. I'm down here on the bayou. I ain't got no idea who you talking about.
Yeah, well, you shouldn't have any idea who we're talking about. We try to keep our secrets close, especially our SEC secrets. I don't need Sankey sending his guys to me for talking about his coaches. So, but normally, when we're working on a staffing project or a single one, staff just calls and says, hey, guys, I've discovered that our main job is to get them off the bad ones. Right? It's not finding the good coaches. We can all find good coaches. It's getting them off the guys that have performed poorly over their careers or less than everybody else. So normally a head coach will send me a list, 5 to 10 guys, and we'll come back in order and we'll say, here's your top tier, here's your second tier, here's the guys. If you get down to here, we're all fired. Okay, so don't call these guys, just focus on these top ones. And the goal really is efficiency. We're a filter to take off the guys that can't make the staff or probably shouldn't be on the staff. It's not a perfect situation, but the ultimate goal there is to avoid the problems. You want to talk about hijacking the show. If I pose the question, can you think of a time where coach made a decision on a hire that turned out to be a disaster? One guy that was avoidable to screw up the program, right? We could go on about that for days. So from a coaching standpoint, then we elevated ourselves into the NFL. And now we have every NFL coach since 2000 in our system. Now we have every FBS coach and FCS coach in our system since 2010. And so arguably, it's not even arguable, it is the single biggest analytical database of college and professional coaching grades in the world.
Dave, talk to me about how much AI is playing in your role now with crunching the numbers, and are you utilizing any of that right now?
Yeah, we actually, the first time we used AI wasn't on coaching, it was on player evaluation. And so one of the new things we're rolling out next week, ironically, with an SEC program in the SEC, we're rolling out a early player identification system within their state to try to keep more kids in the state early. But it started a couple of years the East football team that I was working with on coaching. And one of my personal passions, being the data nerd that I am, I've always tried to crack the code of the NFL draft. Is there something in the patterns of the draft that allow me to be able to project these guys? And I noticed that this NFC East team we were working with, I asked them, why are you so bad in undrafted free agency? And it just so happens that was the area he was in charge of. And so, but he asked why, and I showed him. And so what I did is I was able to get almost 5,000 pre-draft workouts from them. And I ran it through AI. Mm-hmm. And what it pointed out is their errors in the draft were when they were focusing on guys with one or two elite talents, right? Instead of full body athleticism, they were looking at specific traits. A good example, Georgia, right now, like their tight ends. Okay, if you can't run 20 miles plus an hour on catapult, you're not under consideration. Well, this is the kind of stuff that NFC East team was doing, and they were failing at it. And so that was what, and so it got us looking at full body athleticism, which highly correlates to starts per player in the draft.
Why do you think why were they failing, Dave?
They were failing because they were it was two things. They were looking at an elite metric or metrics in a player because of selection bias, right? The scouts would be like, hey, Rob had elite size and reach, so let's go find other big guys with elite size and reach. Well, Rob happened to be elite at everything, right? So there really wasn't a correlation there. There was a bias because those guys exhibited specific traits and they narrowed their focus too much. And that's why they failed. They were looking at specific select traits at the end of the draft, rather than looking at the full body athleticism because of what AI found in their behaviors.
Is that because you're just able to layer more data and stack it on top of each other and saying, because now we have that ability, clean data in, clean data out, that kind of a thing?
Yeah. What we're able to do there is with AI is data in, data out. Your quality is only as good as the quality that goes in. Okay. And so we were able to get a hold of over 5,000 pre-draft private workout data sets, okay, which is like 85% of everybody that's been drafted since 2000. And we were able to pull out nearly 3,700 that had full body workouts. They did everything, right? The bench press, the 10, the 20, the 40, the vertical, the broad, the cone, the 5, 10, 5, they did everything. And then we were able to work with mathematicians in kinematics at MIT to come up with a full body measurement of total body athleticism. And it was because AI identified that elite, singular elite traits and able to come over and create a model that allowed us to identify total body athleticism. And then we were able to take that and move it into 15-year-olds, 14-year-olds, 12, 13. So if I have combines in anybody's state, right? If I'm in Florida, if I'm in Georgia, if I'm in Alabama, if I'm in South Carolina, Louisiana, Mississippi, if I'm working for any of these SEC teams, Texas, right? And they're out there telling these high school coaches to run our combines and get us the data, I can project who is and who is not going to have the athleticism to make that roster before these kids are even in high school.
One last question. I was this important juncture here, and I'm sorry, guys. I've just been waiting for this interview. So why is how can this not be the precursor with a quantum chip to real-time readouts, biometric readouts of your athletes as like a game is going to see who's gassed and not gassed? Is this that first step in that direction?
It certainly could be. It certainly could be. I believe that in collecting, the most important thing is how are you going to collect this database, right? How are you going to get this information? And once you get enough of a sample size, how is it going to be analyzed and then applied? And obviously with what's available out there, ultimately, I have found the most important thing is how are you going to collect the data? And like you said, we have the ability to collect a lot of data instantaneously and have it instantaneously analyzed. So really with the data collection tools they have right now, at least at the upper level, maybe at the NFL level, but at the lower levels where we're focusing on player identification, you're not going to be able to have these tools in every school, in every middle school, in every training center. It's going to be very hard to mine diamonds when you don't have the equipment to mine them in those certain places. The upper end of football, professional football, totally agree. On the fly decisions, instantaneous stuff. Sky's the limit there because all of that data is concentrated in 32 teams. Or in the SEC, it's all concentrated in 16 teams.
Yeah.
But in terms of bringing guys in, that's a different story.
Doug, does HIPAA start to get involved here at all when you start talking about individual? Do we start looking at that at some point? Doug? Doug?
Are you the interviewer?
Well, I'm asking you.
I'm not.
I know you're the expert.
I'll let Dave comment. I don't think everybody knows how to work within HIPAA. If privacy is preferred by an athlete, usually you have to honor it. But I forgot where we left off on the analytics. Dave, I was going to, and Brendan asked great questions. I was going to see if you could use a particular SEC team from last year to pressure test, shall we say, the limitations of data. And I'm sure you go through a continuous improvement process, you and the MIT geniuses, and the multiple linear regression is probably tame compared to the stats they're applying, the analytics. But how did we not see South Carolina coming a year ago as a 9-3 team? Is that sort of within to do as well as they did? Is that within the margin of error that any data gives you? Enlighten us on that.
No, we didn't see it coming. There's nothing there that showed it was coming. Nothing. And a couple of things. Number one is in my data work, I believe that simple answers are better. I don't like to dive into the complex. I like yes and no. I like black and white. So when it comes down to college football, I focus on three things: recruiting, coaching, and where the game is played. That's it. Right? Those are your three big factors: recruiting, coaching, where the game is played. I call it TLC, talent, location, coaching. That's it. So when you look at South Carolina, you look at South Carolina recruiting. They run in the low 20s, right? In the SEC, that's the middle of the road, right? So right off the bat, we expect a middle of the road record. Brutal schedule, right? One of the top 5 strengths of schedules before the season, after the season.
Florida, put Florida in there too.
Brutal schedule. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Okay. So and think about it. They were 10-2 without that crap call against LSU at home on the TD return, right? So and then you start looking at the coaching. And I said at the beginning of the season, Clayton White has always been high on our list. And he has a really high ceiling as a DC. We like that side of it. But they lost Pete Lembo, top 5 special teams coordinator. I thought Pete was a bigger amount of glue at South Carolina. Then you go to Dowell Logains, who in the NFL is a bottom 10 offensive coordinator out of 197 offensive coordinators since 2000. I didn't believe in him. So we got a good DC. We got mid-level talent. We got one of the toughest schedules in college football. There's only 2 things that I can attribute. One hell of a freaking job building culture and cohesion. Okay, intangible stuff we can't measure with data. Fans are buying in, the boosters are buying in, the players are buying in, the coaches are buying in. There's nobody that's not buying into what he's doing. So I'll give the credit to Shane. And the second thing I'll give credit to is a quarterback.
The quarterback.
We all know a quarterback can accelerate a program, right? And the best example ever is Cam Newton, right? He shouldered that Auburn team, right?
And
so to me, it's all about Lenora Sellers out of South Florence. That's and so could we see Lenora Sellers coming? No.
It's a black swan event.
Right. I mean, it's just there's nothing there that said this could be a 10-2 playoff team. No way. I would have taken that bet every day of the week, twice on Sundays on the under.
Yep. Frank?
Frank, jump in here.
Let's go back talking about the coaches, because I think that's the really fascinating thing where you're affecting so many of these players. Players coming in, going to and fro, that's time immemorial. But these coaches truly can affect the program. And I bring up the case of Matt House. I mean, how can a DC go ahead and ruin a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback? Well, you give up 40 points every friggin' time you go out. It doesn't matter how great your Heisman Trophy quarterback is. My question to you is, what is your best examples of this addition by subtraction? If you would have taken out a hire on the defensive side and a hire that was made on the offensive side, say in the last 10 years, what could have happened to those two teams? What is your biggest offensive and what is your biggest defensive blunder coaching years?
Oh my God!
Because I'm telling you, our offense was incredible. It's statistically better than the Joe Burrow year.
Okay. Let's rewind. That is a really big question. That's a big question. B, I'm a pessimist, so I think there's thousands of examples how coaches have effed up. Okay. On this 2 years ago, before LSU with Matt House as a defensive coordinator came out, I would have told you, and I said it on the air all over the South, that is the worst defensive staff in the SEC. Matt House is below average, and everybody supporting him is below average. That coaching staff stinks. Okay? It was as bad as what was at Mississippi State. Those were your two stinkers, unequivocally, to start the season 2 years ago.
Rob and Doug can tell you 4 years, and I don't even have an MIT staff.
So your addition by subtraction is he cleaned house, right? And then he brought in Blake and a whole bunch of other guys. And so obviously there was an upgrade, but I don't think it was as big as an upgrade as y'all think it was. Right.
Well, anything is better. And I agree. I do agree. Blake, he's got some work to do. Now, let's bring up the other one. How about Potato Boy Harsin at Auburn? Who in the hell was in charge of that thing? I mean, you've got some stinkers in the last decade in the SEC.
Not him
and everybody
specifically.
thought and everybody thought Billy Napier was going to be the Spartan Church, but he actually righted the ship. Toward
Dave, Frank is here to visit all our pain upon us on a Friday.
Dr. Payne.
It's all cool. It's all cool. So, but there's always an example. Remember how I said earlier, our job had decision, right? And so if I was working with the Brian Kelly, I would have steered him away from Matt House, right? My other concern now is you lose Denver, who's a largely has no experience.
That was a huge loss.
You're LSU.
Yeah, no, I agree with
You're LSU. You don't go next man up. You don't. You go get best available. You got the money.
Yeah.
And you go get it done. So I think and with Brian, if you look at his career, massive hit. It was a massive hit. And then you talk about your Black Swan event. Not only did you lose Denbrock, you lost your Heisman Trophy winning starting quarterback who had 4 or 5 seasons under his belt. So it was a mess. And then you went next man up as you're cleaning out the defensive side. It's just the offensive defensive pairing at LSU is not up to par with the talent. LSU has more starts in the NFL in the last 10 years than anybody else but Georgia. The talent's there. The talent's always there. LSU should constantly be in the conversation with national championships, but you are not winning national titles with 3-star DCs and 3-star OCs. Period.
And that's been the case since 2004.
Yeah.
Since
Dave, do you
2004,
discount at all for you've got a DC or OC that the data tells you they're top notch? I don't know the verbiage you use, but do you discount for them simply being in their first year at a new program, the chaos, the disruption and change, the variation?
Oh yeah. Yeah, we do not give a full grade to any coach at any position until they've been at that position for 4 years, right? So we intentionally push them down because what we don't want is one-hit wonders. We don't want Doug Belk coming out his first year and dropping a top 10 defense and everybody going, oh my God, this guy's the next Kirby Smart. And then the very next year with the exact same guys has a bottom 10 defense. Right. So we have to take into account time and sample size. We also have to take into account the talent you have versus the talent you face. Right. So if you're a DC at Vanderbilt, DC at Georgia, well, the better DC is the guy at Vanderbilt. Right. So we have to keep that into account. And then we also keep into account progression and regression. Right. That first year, Mark Helfrich, right in my backyard, he looked like an all-star head coach, right? He took him to a national championship. And then the next year, they were worse and worse and worse. His whole body of work looks good, but it regressed the entire time. We want to find the guys that are progressing through the numbers, even though on average, they may look the same as, let's say, a Helfrich.
Let me ask you about Texas.
Okay, who is projecting up right now? You're
projecting
up, trajecting up.
North
DC.
Carolina is going to rue the day they didn't hire John Summerall, dude. Rue the day. I'm telling you.
Tulane, yeah. No kidding. No kidding.
Absolutely out of their freaking mind to not hire John Summerall.
Yep.
That is the best risk in the group of 6. He was last year. He is right now. I will go to bat for John Summerall. Even if he failed at the Power 4 level, and he's going to get there, I would take that bet and school that Bill sold that to them, and I think they're going to get punished for it. And I think that punishment is going to be John Summerall going somewhere. Let's stay in the S.
Dave, let me ask you about a school, Texas, two schools, Texas and Texas A&M. You and I talked about it last night. Texas endowment, $46 billion.
Yeah.
A&M pushing $20 billion. Since 1970, the whole state of Texas with 30 million people that we know of, won national championship in 2005, runner-up in 2009.
Yeah.
What is it about having all the money in the world, maybe a room full of J.R. Ewings? Nobody seems to take charge. Let's start with Texas A&M, why they can't seem to get it together, you talk about being on a gravy train with biscuit wheels and 4-wheel drive, and they can't do it. And then go to Texas after that.
Another oil buckles.
Well,
with
A&M, I think what you're looking at is the inability to hire a good head coach. That's one of the reasons, right? I think with both of them, there's an intangible problem behind the scenes that we can't see. Because can they recruit? Yes. Do they have the money? Yes. They have everything. So on paper, they should win more, but Shane's getting everybody aligned and on the same page. The opposite is happening at Texas and Texas A&M. That people aren't on the same page. There's behind the scenes infighting, and there's not a cohesion. This is not a strong working body of coaches, players, fans, and boosters, right? They all have to come together. But you look at A&M, look, they just don't hire good head coaches. Pat Sherman is terrible. Jimbo Fisher was a bad hire. The numbers said that was a bad hire from the beginning. They don't hire good head coaches. I really like Mike Elko. I think he's an up-and-coming head coach. He proved it at Duke. He had a solid year last year. Maybe A&M turns it around, but that doesn't change what goes on behind the curtain. And Texas, I think that's just exacerbated. It's even bigger. The booster trying to be that guy that has a relationship with that head coach when they win a national title. The problem is I don't think Steve Sarkisian can win a national title because he's never been able to elevate his players above talent anywhere he's ever coached. So they have the talent, they have the money. I think they're missing the head coach right now, but I think intangibly there's so many cooks in the
a lot of cooks in the kitchen.
He's back.
Yeah, Dave, you're saying there's too many cooks in the kitchen?
Yeah. At Texas, there are probably just too many cooks in the kitchen, and there's nobody there strong enough. Saban was able to get all the cooks together at Alabama. You have to have a very, very, very strong personality to get everybody on the same page.
Saban definitely had that. Pressure test again. This is fun. I'm gonna test your discipline of objectivity and circle back to Oregon. I'm a big Dan Lanning fan. He was on my short list when Auburn hired Freeze, but Lanning, I think the price tag was just out of reach. But what are you looking at? What is the data telling you for Oregon? Because they're stacked with talent. You could debate, does the season they play get them ready for the trenches in the war when you get in the semifinals and past that in the playoff? That would be true of anybody that's playing. But what does the data tell you about 2025 Oregon, and is this a year they could make a big breakthrough?
Of the 2023 Duck team, I know they were number one, but by the numbers, they were never a national title contender last year. They never were. They weren't good enough on offense. They weren't good enough on defense. They were an elite team, but they weren't super elite. They weren't top three. Every national championship winner an offensive and or defensive scoring efficiency. So Oregon was the data is still, I think, what is he? He's going into his fourth season right now, right? So we got a guy right now that is top 20 head coach in the country. He has done well to hire on the offensive coordinator side. He lost one. He brought in Will Stein out of UTSA, a very up-and-coming offensive coordinator. Defensive coordinator side, well, we know what he ran at Georgia, and LaPoy is a five-star linebacker coach, and LaPoy has turned into a pretty good defensive coordinator. So overall, you're looking at a very good head coach OC-DC pairing that's still trying to develop, right? They really aren't that experienced. There's a caveat, though, is that the guys they want are the guys they get. They have a booster in Phil Knight that can literally write any check to get any guy Dan wants. So really, for Oregon, besides coaching, they need to have great player evaluation. And that's it. Where he's going, what he's done with it. I don't like that he goes against the numbers on going for two, which, by the way, that's another subject I can go into anytime and blow up completely these idiots on the TV that are always talking about the FPI green light. What a bunch of morons that is. But with Oregon, I don't know. They have all the pieces to contend, right? And there's really three main keys of a national title contender, and every single one of them have met these keys before the season. Okay, are you a top 10 recruiter over the last 4 years? High school recruiter. The portal doesn't matter, folks. It helps. It doesn't really matter that much unless you get a quarterback that can transition everything. So are you a top 10 recruiter? That's 23 out of the last 25 national champions. Okay. Do you have a 3.5-star or better OC NDC pairing? Oregon does. Everybody else that's won it before has always the OCD combination. And were they top 25 scoring efficiency the year before? So you got to be good to win the year before. So Oregon meets that criteria. They're an elite recruiter. They got a good OCDC pairing. They were very good last year. So yes, they are a national championship contender. But I think when it comes right down to it, it's less the question about, are the players ready to go? Are the coaches mentally ready to go? And you still have a lot of young and experienced coaches at Oregon.
Yeah. Frank?
I got a question for you. Do you guys make wagers based on this information? And if you do you bet on seasonal numbers and totals and outcomes? Or can you even mine it down to particular games when you see an advantage based upon either personnel or coaching staffs?
Yes, we have. I don't like betting totals because I don't like my money locked up for 4 months.
Got it.
But if you want to have a show where we go through 134 totals of all 134 teams, I got no problem doing that. I love talking gambling. My number one rule of thumb in September is I am always looking for the home team that is a better 4-year recruiter that's catching points. I will always bet that to win and cover every single time. Every single time.
Especially if they're home.
Yep.
Dave,
Especially if they're home.
I'm really fascinated by the curious case of how where the data would have led you when Notre Dame faced Georgia, because you really you have to take a deep breath to bet against Kirby Smart with how he's performed, how he's been there, how he gets his team, especially in the trenches, just frothing at the mouth to play games like that. And Marcus Freeman had his critics.
Sure.
What did you see? What defied the data, if it did, and what can we learn from that particular game?
Oh, you mean was it like the semifinal game this last year?
Correct.
Yeah. Number one, Georgia was never a national title contender like Oregon.
Wow.
They weren't, right? Because their offense at the end of the regular season, they were 10th in offensive scoring efficiency. Not good enough. Top 3. Remember, you got to be top 3. And their defense was 25th. That was the worst defense they've had under Kirby Smart. It wasn't Mike Bobo's fault, folks. It was the freaking defense. It wasn't an elite defense. And Notre Dame.
ND had a quarterback too.
Yeah, Notre Dame had a top 5 scoring efficiency offense. They had a top 3 scoring efficiency defense. The number one and scoring efficiency combination last year was Ohio State and Notre Dame. So people look, oh well, and I get it. Who wants? When he's a dog, he wins. But in this scenario that was better offensively and better defensively, they were a better team. Now, Georgia still had more talent, but I think finally that defense not playing up to Kirby Smart level defense finally caught up to them. But it just wasn't a good overall team last year. And I think one of the problems is too many fans get caught up in stupid ass strength of schedule. It doesn't mean anything. There is no correlation to strength of schedule and winning a football game. None.
There is a correlation to the selection committee seating.
And played an entire.
Yeah.
No. I quote from day one, because we were given the formula to ranking and seeding teams day one, 12 years ago. Nobody paid attention to it. They said very clearly, strength of schedule is the last metric we use, and it's only as a tiebreaker when all else is equal. Strength of schedule doesn't mean anything. It's fool's gold. People who think, well, we played a tougher strength of schedule, we're better. You're an idiot. Okay? All you did is played a tougher schedule, and if your AD put that on you, that's your fault. Right? And so, I mean, if Georgia played 12 games in the MAC and went to the playoffs, are they crappy now because they played a soft strength of schedule? Hell no. They're healthy. You want to bet that team. They haven't changed. So one of my messages today is get off your stupid strength of schedule horse, folks. It doesn't mean crap.
Hey, Dave, let me say this is Brad Bellamy.
It's not a subtle point you're making.
Yeah, that's right. Dave, I want to bring in Brad Bellamy, General Manager, LandersForwardMemphis.com. Proud to have them as a sponsor. And I know he's a big Alabama and Memphis fan. And Brad, we've got Albert Einstein. Brad, we have Dave Bartoo on here. This is unbelievable stuff, Dave. I love these numbers. This is explaining the madness of college football, but
some
quickly,
good arithmetic.
It is some good arithmetic. But Brad,
Some
tell us
ciphering.
right now what's going on. Yeah, tell us what's going on at Landers real quick, and we'll get back into this healthy conversation of college football. I know Brendan is an AI junkie. Dave, we're gonna have to get you back on because we're doing AI podcast. So this is the beginning of something great. But Brad, Poplar and Houston Levy is where it all starts.
Absolutely, Rob. Good morning, guys. Man, talk about exciting times for the fall season as well. With all this gambling talk, man, it's getting me jittery and excited. So speaking of jittery, we're in June. We had a really strong month in May and really excited. This is going to be the last month of the Built for America employee pricing for everyone program. So it's a great time to come out, take advantage of really, really great deals on the remaining 24s that we have. We got some good APR rates now, especially on like Mach-E and Lightning. And but the employee price for everyone's the best program that Ford has come out with in a very long time, and it's been tremendous for us. We sold a lot, and we got a lot incoming. Really excited about the 25 Expedition, completely new body style, completely refreshed. And if you haven't had a chance to come out and check one out, Rob, you need to bring your wife out and check one out because she might decide it's time to trade at this point.
Yeah, those Broncos are incredible, man. Brad, folks, Poplar and Houston Levy, LandersForwardMemphis.com. Ask for Brad Bellamy. This is the guy right here that you want to go see. My wife was complimenting you the other day, said he's just a genuinely good person. And by the way, you do a lot like with Agape and a lot of local charities and foundations, Brad, and that speaks highly of the kind of people they have at Landers. And you're also the sponsor of the Touchdown Club. And so, man, LandersForwardMemphis.com. Brad, I know you've got questions too. Dave Bartoo's out in Portland, Oregon. He got up real early this morning, but you heard him talking about strength of schedule. You know, you're an Alabama fan and a Memphis fan. I bet you've got a question or two about how'd you find Kalen DeBoer or whatever, but jump in this conversation.
I mean, you know, there's a lot. I mean, where my mind was going is he started talking about totals and win totals and strength of schedule, or the lack thereof and what it means or doesn't mean. But, you know, I'm curious. You guys, I got on a little bit earlier today because I hate jumping in and not knowing what you guys are talking about. Y'all talked a little bit earlier just about expectations for last year and teams that you missed. South Carolina being one of them. Were there teams last year as we're looking at future outlook for 25, where you're going to help our pocketbooks and make more money this year? Because I'm really excited about all this stuff now. What were the guys really missed out on last year? The ones that the analytics just said, hey, this is not what we expected. This is not what the team we thought it was going to be. You know, obviously injuries can play a part in that especially when it comes to the teams that don't perform. But who were the big teams last year that stood out for you guys? It's like, yep, we didn't see that one come.
Well, I mean, I hate to say it. I mean, South Carolina might be one of the best examples of exceeding a win total. And I mean, it's one thing to exceed a win total. The thing total of, let's say, 6.5, and you're in the playoff. I mean, was there anybody else in the playoff conversation that shocked us like a South Carolina?
I don't think. Where was SMU for you guys? I would think that would be one that might have been the shocker on.
SMU is a fantastic example of a team that vastly overperformed. Now they had a top 3 coaching staff grade in the Big 12 going into that season. They have an excellent staff. I cannot for the life of me believe that an SEC team did not pick off Simmons, their DC. I can't believe it. I honestly can't believe it. And they were able to maintain their coaching continuity. You got Lashley calling plays, so you got a great OC-DC combination. We've always said, look, the Big 12 doesn't have a top 25 recruiter, right? I mean, Vanderbilt's a top 3 recruiter in the Big 12. So the Big 12, as far as we're concerned, is much more coaching dominant. And SMU has a top 3 staff in the Big 12. But new Grace was from a smaller conference into a bigger conference. Again, that transition takes time. For SMU, it took no time. It took 1 second. Boom, it was over. So SMU was an extremely bright light above expectations, in the same way that Florida State was probably the biggest low light we've seen maybe ever in college football. But, on the plus side, yeah, you got your SMU and you have your South Carolina.
Yeah.
And at some point, that was really beyond expectation.
Frank?
What was going for college?
Yeah, Dave, do you have ever an agent of some of these coaches ever reach out to you and offer you a nice Bohemian junket or a Hawaiian vacation to upgrade their coaches in your eyes? Have you ever had anybody reach out to you from an agent standpoint to try and increase their guys' grading with you?
No, but I've had similar things. I have had agents ask, "Can you put this out about Coach?" No, I've never put anything out.
Disinformation.
They go against the numbers. I think the biggest example, the biggest reason agents don't work with us is because half of their guys are pretty good, and they love what we have to say about half their guys, but they don't want an athletic director going, I got a report on Danny the last time Rob, and he doesn't want to give it because it stinks. And so unless an agency has all good coaches, they tend to stay away from us because we don't pull any punches, as I think you've maybe figured out in the last hour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brad, you had a follow-up, I think, and then we'll go back to Doug right after that.
Yeah, I was just curious where Colorado was on the spectrum last year for you guys. Is it one that you guys, that 4.5?
Oh my God, dude! How did? I know Hunter won the Heisman, but come on, Shadur made Pat Shurmur look like a rock star. That's got to be worth a Heisman. Got to be. Colorado would be a third one that was pretty inexplicable with the use of the transfer portal, with the number of guys that they take that transfer down, with the quality of the coaching staff. Now at Colorado, I think a guy to look at is watch out for their DC. That was his first year last year, and it was awesome. So when it comes down to diamonds in the rough, if you're an SEC fan, watch that DC. Forward, don't get over your skis on one-hit wonders. Going forward, I think you lost probably the second best player in college football. I would, as far as quarterbacks go, Cam Ward was the best offensively. I think Shadur was number 2 above Hunter. Wow. And I think Shadur and Travis were the glue that somehow kept that mess together. Turn around and keep Colorado winning 7, 8, 9 games a year. We hit as a top 20 coach in the country, but it's in with one Superman quarterback. So I'm curious to see where it goes. Yeah. I'm curious to see where it goes from here. I don't want to discount him because he's done a really, really good job. When you take away the noise, he's done an amazing job. I think the noise also takes the pressure off of his players. And I think that part of that is part of the script. But I would agree what they did last year with a new OC, a new DC, and all those transfers was pretty damn amazing.
Doug?
Dave, you got to be, I wouldn't say pulling your hair out, but just this year, if you look at the top 25, the early polls that are coming out, and I have a feeling that your data would rank them differently, but because you're free of regional bias that is a reality. But more than most years, as I look through the top 25, it looks like a precious few truly proven quarterbacks. From top to bottom, there's a handful of them, and then specifically on September 20th, Auburn goes to Oklahoma. John Mateer comes in; he's a great quarterback on paper, and Jackson Arnold. We have to wait and see. But how do you grapple with the lack of data on unproven QBs when you're trying to get a handle on what the talent tells you in your analytics?
You know something, that's always a difficult one. I would love, speaking of the AI question, I'd love to feed information on returning quarterbacks and quarterback experience into the system to try to determine plus minus. Typically, rule of thumb in the data, if you have a quarterback with experience that's coming back, that's plus one game. Okay. And it's actually plus 1.1 by the numbers. But when you start talking top 25, I ignore it. You know, it's just for talking. None of it means anything. That's another thing, like strength of schedule. Fans always go off on, the preseason top 25 influenced the vote. No, it doesn't.
Eventually, winning matters, right?
You see Georgia top 25, and then you see the committee with them in the top 25. Oh man, the committee must be using preseason rankings. Are you that dumb?
Yeah.
They've
Frank?
never done it.
Hey, Dave, do you factor in venues for the games, like home field advantage, whether it's day or night and that sort of thing?
No,
do you factor any of that in?
Not day or night, but we do factor it in. Remember, I always said at the beginning, location is important. Okay, but it's not as important as everybody thinks it is. I'll give you a home field stat. This is gonna blow your mind. Okay, everybody thinks so. When you watch a game and you see false starts, you would expect road teams to have a lot more false starts than home teams, right? But when you look at the numbers, you would expect. But when you look at the numbers, every single year, there are more teams with more false starts at home than on the road.
Interesting.
The majority of teams at false start than on the road. And so, but what affects more than anything is down pressure. Second down, you're going to get double the false starts of first down. Third, double the false starts of second down. Fourth, this is something coaches don't take into account on their analytics. There is so much pressure on fourth down. The odds of a false start on fourth down are over double a false start on third down. And so there's more down pressure in football than there's actually home field pressure.
Do you dink Lane Kiffin for his seeming love affair with fourth down analytics? How do you view that?
I don't know if it's a love affair with it. I can tell you, rule of thumb, if it's 4th and 3 or more, it's a dumb decision.
All right, Dave.
Just really that simple.
Yeah, Dave. You made a comment on Chuck Oliver's show a couple of weeks ago about guys when they transfer from a Power 4 to Group of 5 or lower, the average number of starts for those guys in the NFL. Give that stat out because I want to hear it again because it'll blow your mind.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So I call them transfers up, transfer down. Right? To Georgia is a transfer up. Right? You're going from a 40s recruiter to a top 10 recruiter. Okay. A Georgia guy down to Georgia Tech, that's transfer down. All right. So if you look at everybody that's been drafted in the last decade, and you separate them into guys with a transfer down on their resume and guys with a transfer up on their resume, the guys with the transfer up per player end up starting over 700% more games than the guys with the transfer down.
Very cool.
Okay?
That's interesting.
Right? So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brad, go ahead.
Okay. And so
I
my
think you hit mute, Brad.
advice to college GMs is beware of the transfer down, right? Beware of the transfer down. Look at spring ball. Look at spring ball. You had Mississippi State, they had 8 transfers, right? Now in total, your top 20 recruiters only had 16 transfers up from spring. But you look at Mississippi State, they brought 8 guys up from lower level. The 11 guys that left all went down. None of them went up. Okay. So one of the things I'm trying to do is I'm watching transfer up and transfer down to see how good teams are at player development, because the big guys should be pulling transfers up. That's telling me that a program is good at evaluating talent because they're getting their guys pulled up.
All right, let me say something real quick.
Yeah.
Our executive producer, Brendan Martin, said we get to go an extra 5 minutes. It's called LandersForwardMemphis.com Overtime. This is unbelievable stuff. And I got to tell you, Brendan and I are going to get you on the AI podcast. We got to get you to meet Dr. Ali at Auburn, Dr. Reed, the assistant to the provost at Florida. They did an SEC AI panel at Media Days last July in Dallas. Brendan got me to go. Watching Brendan there was like watching Chris Kyle give somebody shooting lessons, American Sniper. It was unbelievable to see Brendan because of the way his brain works. And so, guys, listen, we can go an extra. So we got 7-8 minutes to go. And then, Dave, make sure you let people know how they can follow you, because we are so grateful and blessed to have you up early on the West Coast. But as an outdoorsman,
our Landers Forward.
That's right. Overtime by Landers. All right.
Right, our Landers Forward sudden death overtime here. Well, anybody can get a hold of me. Social media wise, Twitter's the easiest one, at CFB Matrix. Pretty easy there. But if you got whoever's listening, if you're a fan, if you're a coach, if you're a collective that wants to roll out the new player identification program that we've started, you can just hit me on my text. Okay, you can text me 971-217-8419. Be nice, but I love talking college football. So I'll take all your questions and comments off the air with that one.
I need 2 predictions from you. Natty winner, and Heisman. I want a chalk pick, and I want a long shot pick of both of those. Who you got?
No, I'm not ready. I'm not ready for a.
I'm gonna count you. Is it?
Look, the national
early summer.
No, I don't have a national championship lock, because this year there are more teams that have good OCs and DCs that are a top 10 recruiter that did very, very well last year. There is more competition. Last year there was only 4 teams. It was Oregon coming into the season. It was Oregon, Georgia, Ohio State, Texas. Those are my only 4 competitors last year. And usually it's 4 to 6. This year there's 9. It is the single most wide open national championship run in this century, period. Now, as for the Heisman, here's my rule of thumb. Do not bet. There's 2 things I do not bet on. Do not bet on a team that you do not expect to win 9 games. There are 0 Heisman winners this century that weren't on a top 25 team. If you can't see him getting to 9 games, do not bet that guy. Okay. The other thing is do not bet the guy with a crappy offensive coordinator. Do not bet him. Okay. And if you have a question, if I think he's crappy, I just gave you the text line. You can ask me, but don't bet on the guy with a average or below average OC and can't get to 9 wins. Those are your 2 lines in the sand. Whatever the guys that you find that can be a top 25 team and have an excellent OC, those are the guys I would be betting.
Then when you add my metric, which is the last name of the quarterback, Arch Manning, I'd bet on Arch Manning, because if he's got Sarkisian can dial up some plays, I think I would be shocked if they don't win 9 or 10 games, but I don't think they go undefeated either.
Dave?
No, no, and Sarkisian's top 3 offensive coordinator. So I mean that makes sense. How many guys have won the Heisman never taken a college snap before though?
Fair, yeah, fair.
Yeah.
How many get the
You know,
development of Peyton Manning and Archie Manning?
yeah,
Okay.
I don't believe in that crap. I
I
don't.
love your honesty.
I don't believe it rubs off.
Shamed again by
Yeah,
the
I don't believe
college
it rubs
football
off.
matrix.
No, I just something. I mean, I'm sure there's an element of it rubbing off, but snaps are
Yeah,
snaps, baby.
fair.
Snaps are snaps, and he hasn't taken one. So he might end up being great, but I think I think for as much of the positive that Peyton and Eli and Arch are on his side, I think having that last name
There
is
is
a lot
pressure.
of big pressure negative
Fair.
as well.
One more question. Offensive line. Nobody seems to have a dominant offensive line like it used to be. You're moving these guys around. It takes a couple of years to develop an offensive lineman. You go from a 3-point stance to a wide or whatever. Yeah. How do you learn that stuff if you just stop, as Chuck says, for a cup of coffee and one semester? I mean, I think that's a problem. And if you've got an experienced offensive line, you've got a big advantage, I would think, going out of the gate.
Continuity is one of my favorite words in college football. Player continuity, coaching continuity, roster continuity. Okay. That's why like a Colorado is such a surprise to me, is because they lack any continuity whatsoever. They still win above average for their talent. But for the most part, look at Ohio State. They had great player continuity. They had awesome coaching continuity, and again, this year, there was incredible coaching continuity. Ohio State didn't lose any guys. Georgia really didn't lose any guys. Auburn didn't lose any guys. LSU really didn't lose any guys, right? I mean, Ole Miss didn't lose any guys. They have a top 10 staff. Texas didn't lose any guys. They have a top 10 staff. They have the best 3-headed coordinator group in the country at special teams, OC and DC. So I am really excited about the continuity on coaching this year. But if you're betting on a team to win a national title, look at their player continuity
Dave,
as well.
Am I right, Dave?
How many guys did they lose?
The coaching data, and I love what you said earlier because I've done it my whole career. Important leadership hires. First, do no harm. Avoid the disastrous hire. But does the data not allow you to be too rosy about Auburn simply because there is a drag on Hugh Freeze's recent analytics from losing?
Something when I look at Auburn, the first thing I look at with any program is where's their recruiting been, right? I mean that's it. I mean the number one recruiters in every conference. If you take the number one recruiters over the last 20 years, they have more wins than the number twos, and the number twos more than the number threes. I mean it's linear, and so you look at Auburn, they're probably 6th, 7th, 8th best recruiter in the SEC. Okay, so we're talking 7, 8 wins. Do they have a good DC? Do they have a good staff? They got a pretty good DC. They got a pretty good staff. Hugh has been an excellent play caller. Obviously the last couple of years he hasn't had a quarterback. So I think we get selection bias. I think we got the same selection bias with Mike Bobo at South Carolina than at Auburn. And people forgot how good he was. And he's due. I believe that great OCs, great DCs, when they have a bad spell, they're due. So I think with Hugh, yes, his numbers have gone down, but when you look at the body of work, his ceiling is still very high. So we're going to find out if he got the quarterback for his offensive system.
Got a couple
really
left.
quick.
By Oklahoma game.
We got a couple of minutes left. Got another question for you. Brendan, want to know, is Billy Napier in trouble at Florida for not having an offensive coordinator? Your thoughts on that? And again, this is great stuff. Thank you.
No, he's not. Why would he be in trouble for not having an offensive coordinator? Texas doesn't have an offensive coordinator. It's called Steve Sarkisian. He calls the plays, right? Hugh calls the plays, and so there's no difference. Billy's still calling the plays. So I mean, I know like Kyle Flood's the offensive coordinator in title. So cool, he makes an extra $1 million because he has that title. He ain't calling no plays for Steve Sarkisian.
Look,
right? So.
No,
So I'm good with I'm good with Billy calling plays as long as Lagway's
Your
on the field.
blunt force trauma is refreshing. We love
Yeah,
it.
yeah. I mean, this has been all. We got to wrap it up to stay on that time. But will you come back on with us again?
Oh yeah,
Right.
oh yeah. I'm always
Hey,
here to support, guys.
well,
I'm always here to
lights out,
support.
gummies,
So,
my friend.
I hope the
Go Ducks.
I hope the listeners enjoyed this enough to ask me to
yes.
come back on.
They-
I know
they-
you
they
guys
have,
did.
and thank you, Doug, Frank, Brad Bellamy, executive producer Brendan Martin. Awesome stuff. And look, we will be back on Monday morning. Follow this guy. And I know we had some internet things, but we made it work because the captain of the ship was back there behind the curtain. But man, we're the most blessed country in the history of the world. Most often we see the face of Christ and the least among us. Thank you so much. Follow Dave Bartoo. Your team will be better for it. See you Monday. Have a great weekend.
Great weekend, guys.
Go-
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you, man.
Go Tigers. Go Tigers.
Go
Thank you.
Tigers.